afternoon or good morning for those on the West Coast. I'm based in San Francisco, and welcome back if you attended the WUSATA seminar last week on considerations for exporting your product. If you haven't, and if you'd like to see it, I'm sure Kelsey can send you the link. Well, friends, today isn't a very sexy topic. It's export documentation, but it's really important because it can really trip companies up. Because not having the accurate or the required documentation, uh, you know, just means that your goods get held up, and delays are often fatal when you deal with food products. So, what we are going to cover is common export forms and product-specific export forms, also US government forms and foreign government forms. A lot of folks who are experts in this field, they like to divide it by terms of responsibility. What is your responsibility as the exporter? Which forms do you have to fill out? And then what is the importer in a foreign country? What are they responsible for taking care of, licenses or any other government forms? So I'll mention that as well. But first, just a little introduction on what DSG Global is. We are headquartered in San Francisco, in the Western United States, in California, where the beautiful weather outside has kind of contributed to some allergies, so don't mind. Um, but our background is many of us were from FedEx, where we set up their consulting practice for over 10 years and had the pleasure of assisting numerous companies. So delighted to bring that experience to this call today. And sorry, last week I mentioned that exports is really easy if you divide it into these four major sections. We covered the first section uh, last week, which is in the life cycle of an export. It's identifying the customer, doing the marketing, finding the right customer fit, organizing the pricing, and all the legal obligations that can prove problematic in the future, determining the sales contract, figuring out where there's political risk, identifying your Incoterms, and all of that, getting paid, what do you do in case disputes arise. Today we're going to cover export documentation, which is the second circle. The next step, next week, I'll have a brilliant colleague talk about transportation options. And then finally, in our fourth webinar in this series, and the last in the series, we'll talk about the financial impact of cross-border trade, which is customs duties and landed cost. So today, as we said, we'll go into documentation. Now, the common export forms that are usually the same across commodities, whether you're shipping electronics or apparel or plastics or food products, these are usually the common forms. And what I haven't done is included a sample copy of the forms because going over each form and how to fill them out would take much longer. And it probably doesn't show well on a slide presentation. But most of these forms, if you search for them online, you can see images that are pretty good representations of specimens of these forms. Also, websites such as FedEx or DHL or UPS also have copies of these forms. So it's pretty easy to find. So the first is a pro forma commercial invoice. Now, a pro forma commercial invoice is very like commercial invoice, which is the most important document, but it's almost like a pre-commercial invoice. Many times, I would say it's like for a quotation. Your international customer says, "Can you give us a fee quote?" Or, could you give us some sort of a draft invoice so I can organize financing, open my letter of credit from the bank, or reach out to the government for any import licenses that, they need from the Ministry of Health? And generally, it covers most things that you need in a commercial invoice, which is who is the buyer, who is the seller, what are their addresses, where they're located, a detailed description of the goods, usually the harmonized system classification, because that often determines what are the regulatory requirements or licenses needed. Not just the price, but also any payment terms or international commercial terms that determines the roles and responsibilities of different parties, the currency used. Many times we also recommend that you mention the expiration date because it's like a fee quote, right? So, for instance, this price is valid for 30 days. Uh, um, the commercial invoice looks obviously just like the performer, as I mentioned, but that actually accompanies your goods which are exported. And typically, uh, I say a commercial invoice should be like a story. Just like my CPA says, oh, the balance sheet is like a story. For me, the commercial invoice tells me everything about a transaction. And oftentimes, customers say, "Hey, Deep, I ran into some trouble." And I said, "Well, can we start with a commercial invoice?" And looking at the commercial invoice, you can almost anticipate why your goods might have been held up because the customs officials, they need to know the customs value. They need to know who was the importer and exporter. They need to know the harmonized code or description of your product, so on and so forth. In addition to the information already in the pro forma, the commercial invoice will also have your order number, your PO number, and any other insurance or payment information, like your banking information, that might be helpful in getting you paid. The next very important document, if you have multiple packages, or if it's a combination of different types of goods in the same shipment, is your packing list. Many times, your customs authority on the other end might want to identify certain packages for inspection of the goods. So they'll say, show us your packing list so we can identify which box we'd like to open. Your bank or uh, the buyer's bank would also require a copy of the packing list, for further details about the transaction so you can get paid. Also, if there's any insurance claim in case of damaged goods or lost goods, they want a copy of the packing list. So the packing list is a very important document. Now, a certificate of origin.
Hey,
Uh,
Deep.
yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Do you want to address that now, or do you want to wait until the end of your presentation?
So if the how many people do we have? If it's a nice cozy room,
There's about
then
20.
okay. Normally, unless somebody misheard or
Mhm.
there's a lack of understanding on a particular topic, I'm happy to clarify. But if it's a kind of a hypothetical, then maybe at the end,
Okay, this one's a pretty simple question. Mark is
let's take it.
asking, is it
Okay,
best to simplify? He's asking, is it best to simplify list to simply list the 6-digit HS code on docs or full US 10-digit identification number?
that's a great question, and I'm happy to address that. It's just that takes me off course into HS codes.
Okay.
So maybe in the future we'll take it at the end.
Okay.
So the 6 digit is fine. Now, in the United States and most other countries, there's a 10-digit harmonized system. Some countries, very few, have eight. Countries that are not very industrialized might have fewer harmonized codes, but the first six digits for every country is the same. Now, what a lot of uh, exporters from the US, the mistake they make is by putting the US 10-digit code. I'd say over 90% of exporters will just put a US code. And the truth is, if you're the customs broker in Brazil or China or India, the truth is you only recognize the first six digits because the last three digits don't apply to your country's tariff. So, guess what the customs broker on the other end does? They pick the line item or the last four digits that have the higher duty rate. So I just want to say six digits suffices, but if you have to go 10 digits, try to go for the HS code of the destination country because that'll be more relevant. And very few exporters do it, but the exporters that do it, they don't overpay duties and they don't face any delays because the customs official doesn't know what product it is. So I hope that helps.
Perfect. Thank
So
you.
of course, the certificate of origin obviously identifies, where the goods originated. It gets a little difficult if your goods are made in different countries. Then what you have to do is a substantial transformation analysis. But if your products are agricultural or food products, we assume that the country of origin is the country in which it's grown, which is in this case the United States. And certificates of origin can take many forms. There's still some countries who require the certificate of origin to be signed or consularized, such as from a chamber of commerce or a country's consulate. But for the most part, a lot of countries are now fine with electronic certificates of origin. Some countries need a certificate of origin to claim eligibility under a free trade agreement. For instance, if the United States, they've got free trade agreements with over 20 countries. So to get duty-free treatment, let's say with the Caribbean Basin or the Dominican Republic or Canada and Mexico, you need to give origin statement. And that is actually a legal document because that actually gets you a duty-free status. So it's very important to um, think twice before sending it off because you're really making a declaration that your products originate and are eligible under that free trade agreement. A shipper's letter of instruction is really when you use freight forwarders, and it's really your instruction to your freight forwarder saying, okay, we want it sent to this port, and from there, this person is going to pick it up. These are, the warehouse charges, who's going to pay it. It may also include a power of attorney to act on your behalf. So many SLIs also include a permission to your freight forwarder to do your export electronic information filing. It's called EEI filing and it's submitted using the AES platform. If you're not familiar with this AES and EEI, basically all goods that are exported from the United States that have more than that are more than $2,500 in value per Schedule B number, as in per HS number, need to file this EEI, electronic export information, on the automated export system called AES. And there are certain exemptions. Also, shipments sent to Canada are exempted. If your product needs an export license, you need to include an EEI filing regardless of value. And when you do what's known as a routed export, where you're selling to a foreign party, but your foreign party wants their local US freight forwarder to do this filing, um, you still have to provide information to the freight forwarder. So the point I want to make is many companies who are exporting, they prefer to do the AES filing so that they have better control. So that's something we recommend as well, that uh, you know instead of the freight forwarder doing it, if y'all have the capacity, y'all could do it yourselves. That way you have proof, you have the records, and better control. The bill of lading is really your title to the goods. And the bill of lading is a classic shipping term. There's an inland bill of lading, which is for trucking and road or train. And there's also an ocean bill of lading. And really, it's also your receipt that, company X is the owner of the goods and they've given it to this carrier for the purposes of, the export. And in an ocean bill of lading, there's two types. One is a straight bill of lading, um, and straight bill basically says it's uh, to this party, you know. And a negotiable bill of lading is you could mention this party or any other party. For instance, the foreign party could take ownership, or a third party agent could take ownership. It's more flexible, or the foreign bank could take ownership of the goods if it's under a letter of credit or some loan. The airway bill is a express airline company's version of bill of lading. So the FedEx, UPS, DHLs of the world will send you a AWB, and airway bill, and it's standard format issued by IATA, the International Air Transport Association. And yeah, that's uh, oftentimes when you ask FedEx, for if there's any damage or any claim, you'll be referencing the airway bill number. So those, friends, were the common documents: the commercial invoice or a pro forma, the packing list, bill of lading or airway bill to show ownership, and the country of origin in many instances to verify that the goods arose from the United States. When you deal with goods like pharmaceuticals or food, agriculture, there's many product specific forms. Now, the product specific forms could either be from the United States, where the United States government agencies submit the forms, provide the forms to you, or it could also be the local country of importation may require forms from their health agencies. I just want to say, usually, always as a rule, always ask the foreign party you're dealing with in a foreign country. Could be Saudi Arabia, could be Brazil, China, India. I mention these countries because they're very highly regulated. And even if you're new to export or your product's relatively simple, always ask your foreign entity, and they may have imported the goods before. Hey, what are the documents I need? And they may tell you. If they don't know, also ask your carrier or freight forwarder, or your local customs broker, because they are in the business of dealing with these commodities and those countries, and they can tell you what's needed. Because doing your research ahead of time saves so much delays and time and cost later on. Uh, the main documents that you need really try to show compliance with health standards, safety standards, cleanliness, right? Some other countries may require pre-shipment inspections, like from Bureau Veritas or SGS or other third-party agencies. The Food and Drug Administration is one of the major government entities, in addition to USDA, that governs exporting products. And many times your foreign customer may ask for an FDA form. So I'll talk about the major FDA forms needed. The certificate for a foreign government. This is the FDA form, and covers conventional food, additives, infant formula. And what the certificate is really saying is that your goods may be marketed or legally exported from the United States. It's a certificate to a foreign government. You can apply for it online, and the price is not too high. 175 for the first, 155 for the second, and 100 for every subsequent shipment, a certificate. The other document, sorry, just, am I not going back? Is a certificate of exportability. Now, this document, can't uh, says that the product can't be legally marketed in the United States for various reasons, but it does meet the requirements of the FD&C Act and may be exported. And again, the application cost and the process is the same. It's online on the online application for export certificates on the FDA website. Uh, Another document is the certificate of free sale. It's only for dietary supplements and foods for special dietary use. And that serves a similar purpose, saying that it conforms to the FDA and is used for many foreign governments who want to know that this product that you're shipping is safe and regulated in your country for export. There's other FDA forms, such as for cosmetics, for collagen and gelatin in the EU. Now, the way to find out if these products apply to you is really by going to the FDA website. I've included a link later in this presentation, and they will tell you what products are covered and what the documentary requirements are. FDA isn't very responsive in getting back to you over a phone call, or but usually they respond to emails in a couple of days. I just want to forewarn you. The other federal agencies, obviously for food products, are the Department of Agriculture. Um, you know, Depending upon whether your products are dairy products or seafood, there's NOAA, of honey and egg products. All of these are regulated by different entities. Um, Other commonly requested forms by a foreign entity could be, can you give us a certificate of the ingredients? Because the product may not be controlled, but there may be certain chemicals or certain ingredients which are controlled in the foreign country, so they want to see it. They may also ask for proof of testing from an independent laboratory, and they may ask you for a certificate of analysis. Many Islamic countries, they want to see that your goods, your products or animal products were made in accordance with the halal standards. So, you need a halal certificate, and there's many entities that would do the testing and provide the certification for halal certificates. Just some other US government forms. Um, the Department of Agriculture has APHIS, the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, and many foreign countries may require for an APHIS certificate for shipping live animals, plants, animal products, veterinary biologics. And of course, as I mentioned earlier about safety and phytosanitary inspections, they may also ask for phytosanitary certificates, asking about the condition and health of and disease-free status of various shipments. Now, as I mentioned, it's okay finding the US rules, but what about the rules in a foreign country like the EU, the Middle East, South America, and individual countries therein? There are these four resources that are really helpful. The FDA does have an export library which talks about different countries on this link. The USDA, through its Food Safety and Inspection Service, also has various country requirements listed. The Foreign Agricultural Service is an excellent resource that partners with WUSATA that can provide information regarding a foreign country, as well as the US Commercial Service. They have these country commercial guides on their website. They're not specific on food and food products and agriculture, but they have a presence in every other country, and it's an excellent commercial guide to a foreign country. They also talk about general documentation, the customs forms needed, and helping you find a distributor or an agent. Just all excellent resources. But still, the best resource is people on the ground, such as your customer who's importing, or a local customs broker, or your freight forwarder, and they can really tell you the requirements for your product into their country. Friends, with that, I'm delighted to take further questions, and I'm sorry I didn't uh, take questions during. But Wesley, I'm delighted to take any further questions. And I want to just mention this that as part of my arrangement with WUSADA, I'm delighted to offer a free consultation to anyone, beyond this call, because we understand that product specific regulations are very unique and different. So, if you have any specific issues, we can also do it anonymously over a complimentary consultation. But delighted to take any questions in the chat window. Oops. Wesley, maybe you're on mute. Hello.
Oh, was that some? And we also have someone typing, I believe. See, but thank
It
you,
was a
Deep. That was,
great
oh, here we go.
presentation. Thank you.
My
I'm
pleasure.
sorry. I just wanted to say it was a great presentation, and I am very grateful to have the opportunity to participate. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. And the problem with a presentation on export documentation is that it has to be a little general. But if any of you would like specific information for your product, shoot me an email, and I'm delighted to reach out. Or if you'd like to schedule a chat, we can happy to do that as well.
All right. I think there's a couple things in the chat. Deep, can you see those, or would you like me to read them aloud?
If you don't wouldn't mind reading
Sure.
it, that I'll have to switch screens
Sure, sure,
otherwise.
sure, sure. So Emily is saying, as a note, in my experience, APHIS does not have all the countries available yet,
That's
but the
true.
remaining countries are available through AMS, also run by the USDA.
Thank you, Emily. That's very helpful. And you're absolutely right. It's the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. I've seen most of these countries, they list, let's say, 20 countries that accounts for 90% of US trade, but not all of them. So if you're looking for Burkina Faso, that might be difficult. So
Okay, great. And then Bonnie also said, in my experience with exporting dairy products, USADEC is another helpful resource. And then they also say, thank you for the amazing information.
My pleasure. Did you say US DAC or the use EAC?
Like USDEC.
Excellent. Sorry, the US Commercial Service has uh, offices around the country, and those are known as UZACs. So that's also an excellent resource for somebody who can, uh, you know, now, for instance, there's many UZACs, US Export Assistance Center on the West Coast, and they actually have local um, representatives within the US embassies in different countries who can also get you information. But the US deck is obviously a great resource. Thank you.
Awesome. I don't see a whole lot of other questions, but just to remind everyone, next Wednesday, same time, 11 o'clock, Deep will be going over international transportation and logistics. I'll follow up with an email with this slide deck here that also includes his information since he's going to provide those consultations for you, which is really invaluable. So thank you so much for that. I'll send that over as well as the link to next week's presentation if you'd like to join us for that. But if there's anything else, speak up now or we'll let Deep off the hook for now.